Brilliant. So, what challenges or frustrations were you facing before you decided to really, really before you and I started talking, Nick, and kind of like where you was at?
Yeah, well, I think coming out of full-time executive world and having a period of time to readjust, clear my head from that reality, do the things that I've perhaps neglected for a number of years, some travel, some time at home with my wife, some outside of work interests. It became a time where I thought I needed to work out what was next for me from a career point of view. And something I was that was always in the back of my mind, but I'd never addressed was the option for pursuing a portfolio approach to career development. And given my age, experience, and ambition through that process about how I want to map out my professional career and my home life, it became apparent that was the route to take. I guess frustration wise was where the hell do I start? Having not attended to that reality during my executive roles, I was kind of just put that to one side in terms of an option to look at, and I was much more invested in the executive side of my career and realised that I was starting from a standing start. So interestingly, I thought that naively perhaps that I might get a bit more inbound. Oh, you're on the market. How about coming to talk to us about an NED or a board advisory role? And so I guess the frustration was that went fairly, that didn't really kick off as I thought it might do in the first instance. And that's when I stumbled across, or you and I, our paths came across each other. So that was kind of how I felt, and I realised I needed some form of catalyst to organise my thinking to get me to this point of developing a portfolio approach to my career.
Yeah, and was it that I find the timing of this really interesting in terms of when you were focused more on your executive like responsibilities. Like, did you have much bandwidth to focus on this side, or was it a case of you wanted to finish, tie everything up, and in your role, and then start to look at this?
Yeah, I don't think I did have the bandwidth really, realistically. I think it's always been a very full-on career, and I
Mm.
know it is at a senior level in a lot of different parts of industry. Hospitality can be particularly draining and time consuming. So clearly you're available and accessible 7 days a week, and you have long working hours, which correspond to the nature of the business. Um, so I guess I'd always, primarily try to invest myself in that reality, and
Mm.
whatever spare time I did get was invested in being back at home, being back with the family. Did a lot of traveling in work, so it was simply a function of wanting to do a good job in the job I was doing and not really having the bandwidth to really explore those opportunities.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I hear that a lot. It's yeah, you're fully committed to what you're committed to
Yeah.
until you're not. Yeah. So did you have any like when you and I first started speaking, like did you have any like doubts or hesitations or even preconceptions about potentially working together?
Well, I was interested to find out a bit about the process and to get to know you better. And because we hadn't worked professionally together previously, so like anything, you want to get a result and you want to use the best service there is available to you to achieve that result. And therefore, we need to get to know each other. And one of the great things, advantage I had with when I started talking to you was one, I liked you, and I thought you really knew the world of SME and non-exec and the transitional bit about moving from exec to non-exec. So you were an expert in your field. And two, readily available were some references for people that have been working with you, which was super useful from my perspective. So as you know, I spoke to Karen at length
Yeah.
and Karen was very generous with her time and hugely complimentary about her experience of having worked with you and how that had taken her on that journey to getting a very successful portfolio career. And so from that point on, I was convinced you were the right person to use. And I did look at other options. I looked at,
Yeah,
there's a couple of people that spoke to me from about a business called New Role and
yeah,
a business called Connected. But I quickly realised that having engaged with you and during one or two of the group sessions, that this was a very real, tangible methodology that you were confident would lead to developing your portfolio career approach.
mm,
Much more practical and activity based and far less theoretical than other providers in the marketplace that I'd seen.
yeah. I mean, I think at heart, I'm an entrepreneur, so it's about getting things done rather than
Yeah,
talking about that. So it's lovely to hear you. That was your perception. Um, I suppose jumping straight to actually before we get there, like what were your aspirations like as we started working together? Like what was you looking to achieve in terms of how your desired portfolio looked? So how many Ned roles or any other type of roles?
yeah. So it wasn't specifically Ned or board advisory. It was to have a portfolio approach which felt sensible at the time for me, mapping it out in my mind to have two of those landed before the end of the calendar year. So two either board advisory or Ned roles in place and agreed prior to the end of the financial year to work with those a couple of days a month, so getting 4 or 5 days worth of work out a month, to have a clear output orientation towards that relationship with those customers, and then to review it in January with a view to potentially accelerating if it felt the right thing to do
Yeah.
towards 3, potentially 4 into 2026. So that was my original kind of overall framework of ambition.
Yeah, it's brilliant because you've always been very clear on that and very consistent in
Yeah,
that clarity, which has been
yeah,
great. So we properly got going so we're currently mid-November. We
yeah,
probably got going September. You had some lovely
yeah.
like family travels, done a bit of
That is,
prep prior to that. Where are you today? So sort of mid-November. So what
yeah.
specific outcomes have you got?
So yeah, we did effectively start in September. I had a bit more travel to complete in September. I was over in Canada. So when I came back from that, kind of late September, was the time I kind of thought, this is when I need to get on and be more committed to the process, or sort of committed to the process. Um, and we set about working together to um, change my alter and improve my CV and my LinkedIn profile, and started to work through the process of reintroduction on LinkedIn and how to communicate effectively on LinkedIn and become someone who would post regularly on LinkedIn to demonstrate a degree of expertise in the industry. And from that process, standing start, it went incredibly quickly. So almost immediately from my reintroduction post, I got quite a few inbound messages, which were, "Can we talk?" effectively in some way or other, which I obviously followed up on. And from that, I managed by the end of October to secure my first board advisory position with a software company who provide a service into the hospitality industry. So that was signed to go effective at the start of November. I've subsequently signed in the last week or so with a karaoke tech company from Finland, who have a worldwide business, and I'm starting some work with them today. I have a fireside chat with I think their worldwide sales force, some based in America, some based in Finland, and the rest of different parts of Europe. And I've got a call with them this afternoon and a full day deep dive session with their UK-based MD tomorrow. Um, and it looks like I've probably signed a third in the process of signing a third board advisory role with an energy consultancy that works
Mm.
not only in hospitality but also works across different service industries. And I sent them a proposed agreement, had a meeting with our two directors on Friday, and it's green light go for a December start. So,
Wow.
so that'll give me three, which is kind of more than I. But the karaoke tech business, in fairness, although they're paying for some work for me in November, actually want the contract to start in January because December's such a quiet period of time with team absenteeism and people on holiday and the rest of it. So certainly have two through till January, and then three guaranteed to start and three guaranteed to start in the new year.
Wow.
And then just slightly separately, I'm still in conversation with a contact who approached me in a completely different industry, which is to do with the building industry and an inventory management software system, which and he is keen to progress a contract with me to provide support with their ambition to raise investment through the private equity stroke VC world.
Wow. Wow. So that's three. So wow. I mean, first of all, congratulations. I didn't know of the latter ones. I knew
No,
the first
no,
one, of course. This happened very quickly.
yeah,
I'm absolutely chuffy, Nick, and it's kind of a champagne problem because it's a little bit more than what you initially were
yeah.
looking for. So, um, but so first of all, these are all paid. These are all paid.
Sorry,
None of these are
yeah,
pro bono.
they're all paid. Yeah, absolutely, they're all paid. So I've used a standard fee. I've suggested a 3 month review to gauge the amount of work we're doing together, and whether we need to up the days allocation and therefore the fee that would accrue uh,
Excellent.
after that period of time, or reduce it if necessary. So all three will run for a 3 month period. Clearly, the latter agreement, which would be on the delivery of some raising some finance for the organisation, would be dependent on when that would happen.
Wow, this is brilliant. So they're all paid. The not the raising investment, but the previous three. They are averaging 2 days per month per each,
Two
or
days,
the
2 days a month. Yeah, yeah, 2 days a
2 days
month.
a month paid. And we spent some time talking about how we pitch, like how like where to price, and then how to pitch that, and how and like with the
Yeah.
like the agreement. How did you find those conversations? Because that can be a real stumbling block sometimes when.
Yeah, I think you guided me well with that in terms of suggesting the way to approach this to say this is my rate and present that as a discussion point and see where the negotiation goes from there. But in all three cases, there was limited discussion around the rate. Certainly the first two that I've signed limited. The third one was it could be 2 to 3 days. Why don't we see if it's 3 days or 2 days for that rate?
Right.
Which I'm comfortable with because it is one of these which we'll discover over the first 3 months of the relationship, and then we'll review it at the end of that. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, the rate itself has been agreed, but I present it as this is my monthly retainer rate, and this is what I can give you for that, and these are the outputs I can focus on and support you with.
Yeah.
And those have been adjusted according to the different needs of that business.
And obviously, like you don't have to share the rate, but are you happy with the rates that have been
Yes.
agreed? And do you feel it's a fair reflection on you, your
Okay.
value? You're
Yeah.
not underselling yourself or anything like that?
No, not at all. No, I'm really comfortable with the rate. I think it's appropriate, and it certainly makes me want to focus on delivering some real value to the business
Yeah.
in a very tangible way. So, I want to kind of evidence that and have some really strong kind of KPIs and some clear kind of benchmarks for performance that would mean at the end of 3 months we can review this and just see what great value I've delivered.
Which is exactly why we approach it in this way, because by the end of those 3 months, a lot of
Yeah,
the founders you're working with, they start to how, wait a minute, how can we continue moving forward without Nick's involvement? We have
correct.
to
Yeah,
keep, and so that's how you get the long-term value.
yeah,
So I'm absolutely chuffed for you, Nick. I really, really am. Particularly as we've only just covered like
Yeah.
start part of the process, not even the full thing. How have you found the experience? Now you sort of come the other side, you made the decision, we started working together, part of the community. How have you found the experience overall, sort of like working together between ourselves, but also as with the others and the the sort of the peer group?
Yeah, I mean the peer group stuff has been fantastic. I can't, we're all with a common ambition, albeit from very different backgrounds, different industries, and you can see in the kind of interactions I've had with the rest of the group on the call, we're all kind of different characters as well.
Yeah,
But that's quite it's quite good, and there's been some. Not only do we contact each other on the call, there's some connectivity outside of the calls as well in terms of messaging and things on LinkedIn or on WhatsApp, which is really nice. So that's been really encouraging. It's great to see so many of the team, so many of that group doing really well in terms of their developing their own approach to their portfolio careers, albeit people are wanting different things.
yeah,
So really pleased with that. Got a lot of respect, and the people I've seen so far clearly know their industries and their roles exceptionally well, and seem to be gaining great traction. Working with you has been brilliant. I've got to say, I've been hugely impressed, and for anyone who's prepared to listen to me, I've been singing your praises quite
oh,
widely over recent months. Not least that you are an expert in what you do, and you, you know the sequence of things to do that will yield a result. And simple reality is what you have guided me to do so far in our conversations has yielded some really powerful results very quickly, far faster than I thought it was ever going to happen. I thought I'd be in for the kind of long grind, thinking that actually, if I have to go to Christmas and into the new year before I get any traction, that's probably okay, and that's probably in line with how Adrian would manage the process for me anyway. So that's a good thing. But I think what you brought, not only are you really knowledgeable about the SME world and the things that NEDs and board advisors can bring to that world that is in need of support in certain ways. You have a really strong sense of what are the practical steps that you can take in terms of your career development to make yourself attractive to the outside world. And then you're available. I mean, the fact that you want to speak to people before they have a conversation with a potential client, and you pick up the phone and have you got 5 minutes for a catch up, and I want you to run by me what you're going to talk to the client about. Speaks volumes about the values that you've got as well in terms of making sure that the people that come onto the program are a success.
yeah. It's and yeah, and like we were talking about, previous conversation. I'm very selective about that, making sure the
Yeah.
right people are coming in. Not part because I only want to work with people who I think have, going to really make this work, but equally to really preserve and enhance that peer group because there's just so much happening and starting to really like ferment there. It's just, yeah, I feel very protective over that. Um,
Well, and I understand that. And, so much so that the people I spoke to, and I spoke about your services, a couple of people have asked me for your number, and I've so far refrained from doing it only on the basis that, in the fullness of time might be appropriate, but they've got to be committed, before they speak to you, and, you may select them in or select them out. But I've got a couple of people who are obviously asking about how I'm getting on. And one of the things I've said is it's going really well, and a big part of that has been Adrian's support and professionalism in terms of how he's approached it. And of course, the next question is, well, can you send me his details?
right.
No,
Yeah.
which is a nice compliment to have.
Yeah, it's brilliant. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate all that, Nick. So just two final questions. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. Would you recommend SME non-exec and like everything we're doing, like with the group program, like would you recommend it to other executives? I mean, I think I've kind of well, you've already answered that question to be fair, as I'm
In
saying
a
that now,
heartbeat, in a heart,
but
in a heartbeat. Yeah, anybody
yeah,
who is a similar position to me, and wants a professional support plan to get them to develop a portfolio career with their SMEs. I couldn't have asked for any more than I received from you in that process, Adrian. So no, I will definitely pass your details forward.
Thank you so much. And again, you sort of touched on this. The final question, like, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about this? Maybe they're not as like clear on this is the path for me, like, but you know, they've made have either recently left their full-time executive role or they have a leave date and they're sort of considering seriously. Like, what advice would you give to someone in that stage?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would do what I did, which is speak to some of the delegates that have been through the program and find out
Mm,
exactly what their observations are about what works well, and how it can help them develop their own thought process. I think they need a plan. I think they need to really sit down and think about what they want from their career pathway. And portfolio approach sounds attractive, but you've got to think about the kind of practicalities of that and think about the
yeah,
balance of work and home life and other interests and financial commitments. And then if that is the right approach, then I would strongly advise they pick up the phone to someone who's been on the program and take some feedback, see if it's appropriate.
yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Well, I'm absolutely chuffed to bits for you, Nick. I really am. I'm just so pleased. And I remember our very first sort of earlier
Yeah.
conversations, and you again, you just maintained throughout this is what you wanted quite clearly, like ideally two non-exec type roles of, that structure, before Christmas would be ideal. And yeah, we sort of sitting there with three and well, sort of two with the three. I'm absolutely chuffed to bits with you, and I really hope it delivers everything that you're looking for in this sort of next step on from your former role. So
Very much.
wonderful.
Great stuff.
Thank you very much.